Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so my name, first, tell me your name, like, and where this comes from, because to me it sounds Italian, right? But
Yeah,
yeah,
so my name is Gianluca. That's the parents, my parents went with that, and
for flair too,
for Fleur, right?
Gianluca.
That's the only thing Italian about
I've,
me is my name.
I've never met another Gianluca in Bermuda.
Funny enough, it's almost like Jonathan in Italy.
Okay,
So if you go to Italy, it's actually a fairly common name.
okay,
It's just that it's not common outside of Italy,
not coming here.
at all.
Okay,
I think I know one other Gianluca in Bermuda, or
okay.
of one.
And tell me what the name means, Gianluca. And do you pronounce it with a J or J? Like Gianluca or Jean-Luca?
It's like Gianluca.
Gianluca, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Gianluca. Some people say Gianluca,
Okay.
but it's more like Gianluca.
Gianluca.
Gianluca, yeah,
I
If you
don't
do this, it helps.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that prejudice? Though?
That's their culture, right? I mean, we're just trying to
Facts.
assimilate. That's
Facts,
all.
facts. So what does Jean-Luca mean?
God's gift of light.
God's gift of light.
Yeah.
Okay. So now it's your turn to ask me what my name means.
Exactly. No, Nhuri is such a unique name. I've actually never met someone with that name before. So
Okay.
I'm very interested in knowing what that
So
could mean.
my name is Arabic in nature,
Okay.
and it's Noor Abdelhak Bashir. Right.
That's
That's my full name.
That's your full name.
Full name. So my name is in Bermuda is Nori. In Bermuda is Nori. But Noor means light.
Wow.
Right? Means guiding light,
Wow.
So, the North Star,
Uh-huh.
that would be Noor, like the guiding
Wow.
light. So
Wow.
the names have a very similar basis,
How'd you end up with a name like that?
So my parents were Muslim,
Okay.
or are Muslim. My dad practicing Muslim. My mom, she's a practicing believer in all things spiritual.
Okay.
I don't think she practices religion as much anymore.
Okay.
But when I was born, my parents were practicing Muslims. So they gave most of us Arabic names.
Okay.
Yeah. So even Bashir is a name that my parents adopted to kind of shake themselves. Or my mom adopted. My dad his last name is Wasi. My mom adopted to shake off her slave name, right, which would have been Turner, and my dad's slave name would have been Davis.
Okay.
Yeah. So our family in Bermuda are the Davises and the Turners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't it phenomenal how people shape identity with name? I think that's so
100%.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. And you think about that movement in and of itself, where people were trying to reclaim identity,
Yeah.
and define who they were, not based on some historical legacy or whatnot.
Exactly.
Starting things new.
No.
Yeah,
not at all.
which brings me to you and breaking molds and starting things new. Saxophone, LA, TED Talks. We got conferences. Like, who are you? Like, and what is going on? Like, talk to me about Gianluca and who you
Sure.
are.
It's funny. When I was in school, right? So, fun fact, I was in LA since 2010.
Okay.
I was on a student visa for 9 years.
By hook or by crook? Was that on purpose?
It was the only way to stay legally that long.
Okay.
Right. My
Fair enough.
goal was to stay out there to continue building. And I say this because it got to the point where I did an undergrad, I did a master's, and I still needed more time before I can get my green card application pushed through.
Okay.
So I started a doctorate program, right?
Okay.
But I didn't finish it because that wasn't the intention. It was more of a immigration mechanism at that point.
Now, if ICE watches this, will you have a problem?
No, of course not. I mean, it's
You're
legal.
good now, right?
Right. I'm
Yeah,
good now, and but that's the way you stay.
Okay, got you.
Right. It's just that it wasn't feasible for me to finish a 4-year program.
Okay.
Right, with my plans, just financially, everything is just it just wasn't feasible.
But that was your way to be able to stay in the United States.
Right now,
legally.
had I had to do the whole 4, I would have done it because it was an interesting course, right? But I bring it up because one of my doctorate professors introduced me to this concept of third culture kid.
Okay.
Right? And you talk about identity and names. For the longest time, I had I would say a semi-identity crisis.
In what way? What were you having a crisis about?
Belonging to
Okay.
a specific place. I'm originally from Bermuda, right? But at the age of 1, my family moved to Cameroon, Africa as missionaries.
Wow.
We were there for 6.5 years. Came back to Bermuda for a year. Then went to Michigan for 2 years. Then
Okay.
Jamaica for a year. Then back to Bermuda for about 4 more years. Then I did 3 years of boarding school in Spain. and then I went to Los Angeles, right? So
collectively in Bermuda, you only had what? 4 years? 3-4 years?
yes, but I would come back every summer
Okay.
for like 2 months at a time,
Okay.
plus those years. So, and also what you find is like between 5th grade and 10th grade, a lot of identity gets shaped.
100%.
Right, and those were the years I was in Bermuda. So a lot of my I would say my core identity is still very much structured around a Bermudian islander.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm very grateful for this. And the summers too is like summers when you free up. So I'm packing groceries, I'm working up, Princess.
Okay, so you got a real Bermuda identity.
Yeah, I'm working at Boyle's and
I was saying this earlier that your accent, to me, is a Bermudian accent. There's no mistaking that's a Bermudian accent. But I was mentioning it earlier that it's got like a flair to it. You know? It's got a flair to it. And a non-Bermudian might not pick up on it, but me listening, I'm saying, well, there's something else going on here. So that gives a lot of color to what I was hearing. But, obviously that was your experience.
Yeah, it's just colorful, It's like I've gone to school in French. I've gone to school in Spanish. I've gone to school in English.
So are you fluent in Spanish and French?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, writing, not so much French because it was conversational growing up. So French and English are my first 2 languages.
Wow.
From 1 to about 7, you speak English in the house and French in school.
Yeah, I think I've got maybe 10 words in French.
Yeah.
Yeah, parlez-vous français?
All right.
Autobus.
Ah.
Le salle de bain.
You got a good accent.
Yeah.
L'accent, c'est très bien. Hein?
Très bien.
Vraiment increíble.
Y yo puedo hablar en español, poquito, suficiente.
Eso está bien también. Mira, está todo internacional, ¿no?
Tú sabes.
That's what I'm talking. You hang out with South Americans.
Yeah. Got some Dominican bombers,
I
like a little time in Puerto Rico too,
Okay.
So I can speak a little bit. I can speak enough to be able to get by. In Spanish. Definitely conversational, nowhere near fluent in any way, shape, or form, but enough to be able to get by.
But even with your base, and people have to understand, like, language is energy, right? And it's like the more time you spend around energy, let's say, you are who your 5 friends are as well.
Correct.
Language is similar. So it's like I didn't thrive academically when doing language in school, but I learned immersively.
Right, through connecting with people.
It's like music. If you give somebody a horn and you put them in a band for 6 months, they're gonna start playing music.
Yeah, I mean, if they have rhythm.
But if 3 hours a day they gotta sit and just jam with the people,
100%.
they have no choice.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't practice, if you're constantly playing with people, your ear's gonna hear something, your fingers are gonna learn the mechanism, and you're gonna produce a level of sound that's collaborative with the sound around you, right?
I love that.
And that's the vibe of languages as well. So it's like, just off of what you have, if you were to post up for a gig for 6 months in Dominican Republic, brother, you're fluent.
Yeah, I would be fine. I could post up in the barbershop right now. We could have laughs.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how, like, you will go and Duolingo and, like, you ain't hitting nothing, but you go there for 3 or 4 months and you're like a Latino papi, Exacto.
Like,
locked in,
Exactly, yeah. And if I keep my mouth shut for long enough, they think I'm one of them too.
Hey, bro, exactly. That's the key. It's like, yo, if you don't say nothing, they'll think you're from here.
Exactly. Awesome, man. Okay, so you're over in LA. You are doing the university thing with the intention of being able to stay and build, which is what I heard you say.
Yes.
But build what? What are we talking
Sure.
about?
So when I mentioned that third culture kid, right, I mentioned that because these are people who have grown up in a culture that's separate from the culture of their parents, right? And it's usually a hybrid culture. And as I started learning about that, and keep in mind, this is like, I discovered this in like my late 20s, So like very late 20s. So at this point, I was like, I'm starting to understand some of the things I struggled with. Like, why is it so hard for me to like stay at a job? Why is it that people are having issues like placing me somewhere?
Okay.
Why is it that dating is so difficult? All these different things. And I start realizing these are side effects of being a third culture kid.
Wow.
And it helped me understand my career because, I kind of have this, I have a hybrid career, right? Or they call it a multi-hyphenated career.
Okay.
Right? That's what people call it now.
Okay.
And
let's break that down because for me, multi-hyphenated career, for lack of better terms, I didn't even know what that means. I mean, it's jargon to me.
Of
So
course.
what does it mean in practical terms?
Sure. Well, in practical terms, as an immigrant in another country, you learn what you must learn to get what you need for the next step.
Okay.
Right? So because I traveled so much, I was used to unfamiliarity. I was used to assimilating at a very high speed. I was very good at observing and mirroring. So I could be put in a chaotic situation and then find organization and momentum very quickly. Because out of necessity, I did that as a child.
Okay.
So when I went to LA, I studied music and business, started a band my freshman year.
Okay.
And I had a soul pop band. It was dope, you know? I started a open mic night on my school campus.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it was 300, 400 deep from all around the city, people coming in. So it's like I learned, I was like, oh, I like this.
Okay.
You know, so when I graduated, I continued pushing my music.
Wicked.
Right? But
Wicked.
in addition to that, I had to I had to work, I had to build this. So I was in entertainment PR for a while.
Okay.
And then
I'm going to ask you to explain certain things.
Sure.
I'll let you get through it, but I want you to explain certain things. And I'm going to tell you something also.
Yeah, man.
Because I was in a band in university also.
For real?
Yeah.
What type of band? I gotta know this.
So I didn't actually play the instruments. I could make my way through a guitar. But I sang in a band called The Chronicles, right?
Okay,
Yes,
that sounds real, like, you know?
So we actually did like Battle of the Bands. So this is coming out of my last year university. We did Battle of the Bands, and we actually toured Canada. We won the Battle of the Bands in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Wow.
And that got us a starting gig at all of the Frost Weeks across the country.
Wow.
So I spent a little bit of time touring and performing and all kinds of stuff. There's a YouTube clip one up, because back then obviously YouTube wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got that in common.
Man's a whole singing. Yeah, lead singer of a band, no? Hey, who would have known?
Hey, I didn't know. Jeez,
that's that
man.
North Star. See?
Hey, that's it, bro. Jeez. But yes, okay. So, explain to me some of the terms that you say you got into PR. What does that mean? Like when you say you got into that, because I think for a lot of people, especially us Bermudians, who sometimes we don't have a clear path in having someone that you can say, this person has done that thing, and therefore I can follow that path.
Sure.
In football, we have Clyde Best, who forged a path where Bermudians can now see themselves as, look, I know I can become a professional football player. Right? But you becoming and doing music and taking business and getting into PR and music, like, I don't know too many people that have that path.
Sure. So
could you give some information about what that is, and how you got into it and your experience in the early stage?
Sure. So I graduated, right, and I didn't have anything lined up because my last few months of graduation, I was raising funds to take my band on tour. I was not focused on applying for jobs.
Yeah.
So we raised the funds. We did a tour on the West Coast, and then we did we actually came to Bermuda and did about 7 shows.
In Bermuda?
In Bermuda. It's back in 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, so we did about 7 shows, and this was before the accident happened at Chew Stick. We did a concert at Chew Stick on Front Street.
Wicked.
We did a bunch of shows, right? So after that, tour was lit, you know what I'm saying? I got back, and I was just like, oh, flip. I ain't got nothing lined up. So I applied to like as many record label positions as I could find, anything really. And I got this internship in entertainment PR, which is basically you do press research, you write articles, and then you pitch bands to press so their release or their album can be featured.
Gets picked up. Okay.
So I was doing that along with some social media stuff on the side. I was managing people's accounts.
Okay. And what year is this now?
2015.
Yeah, maverick, because like managing social media at that time was like not even a thought for MySpace, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but LA's been one of those places where it's very like creative and forward.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, I had been doing it for my band because social media was like the primary way to connect with people in that way. So me and my bandmates for the course of my whole undergraduate program were finding like growth hacks
Mm-hmm.
How do we get people to follow? How do we get people to buy tickets?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get people to engage?
Mm-hmm.
So I come up with all these unorthodox ways of like driving engagement,
Yeah.
you know, and I started applying that, and some clients thought it was interesting. So I was like, cool, that's a low money right there, you know?
Love it.
So yeah, I got into entertainment PR. That was cool,
Mm-hmm.
but it was part-time, and living in LA is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I got a job in digital marketing,
Okay.
right? And
At what company?
it was called ONA Creative.
I feel like I've heard that name before.
No. So the founder, she worked at the Clippers.
Okay.
She ran social media for the Clippers, and then she did social media. She ran social media for Nike,
Oh, wow.
and then she left that company and then started ONA.
Okay.
And I was actually her first hire. They're now like world-renowned, award-winning creative agency.
100%. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the name.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. So you were the first employee at ONA.
first employee at ONA,
Cool.
and I was there for like about almost a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
You know, got to do some incredible work with them
Okay.
and sharpen my tools. All the while, I was still pushing my band.
All right.
You know,
So while you were at ONA, give me a story. What was your favorite project or something that was awesome that you did there?
okay. You know, I've never said this on camera, but it's very funny. So I think I'm at the age where it's okay to talk about. Yeah, of
Safe
course.
space.
Right? Yeah, safe. Right? Safe. Who's watching?
Yeah, safe space.
No, but okay. Real talk. So, I got hired by ONA, and you know Stillhouse Whiskey.
I do. Yes.
So Stillhouse Whiskey just got funded,
Okay.
and we were their first major marketing agency that they onboarded
Okay.
for their creative social media, and then also their experiential activations. We ran social for experiential activations.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't drink. Well, at the time, I drank a little when I was younger, but I stopped drinking,
Okay.
right? And and this is my second day on the job. It's a Friday afternoon, right? And then she pulls me in with the executives. So we go to Stillhouse headquarters, meet all the executives. And Stillhouse is whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And they have all these flavors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he lines up all the flavors on the table, and your boy's like, have you tried the whiskey yet? Because, I'm community management. It's my job to engage.
You have to know the product.
I have to engage with all the comments and respond, and, I'm writing copy for the post. And
Right.
he's like, oh, you got to try them. I'm like, oh. This man poured 7 shots.
Oh, my goodness, man.
And then looked at me.
Yeah, like it's time.
And I look at my boss, and I can't
Straight
be
shots.
like, oh, by the way, I don't drink. Because this is her first major client.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
7 shots later.
Yeah, it was. And this was at the end of the meeting. So I'm going to do this and then go do it getting home. So that was hilarious.
I think whiskey tasting, rum tasting, and all of those things, they're just a ruse to get you peppered. You know? It's just a ruse.
Straight up.
Because you would never in any other scenario just drink 7 shots of whiskey.
No, I didn't do full shots. So I definitely sipped.
You sipped it.
I was like, this man's trying to have me
But let's just say you did 4 shots.
Right. Either way, it's like collectively, it was more
it's too
alcohol
much.
than I had had in years,
It's
right?
too much.
But it was funny because, it taught me something. It taught me something because sometimes we get so hung up on what we do, what we don't. This is this man's art.
Mm-hmm.
His team came together and they made spirits.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And he's like, I want you to taste the richness of what we've created.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a cultural exchange.
Yeah.
No, I don't drink,
Right.
but I could appreciate that.
100%.
Because he told me the story behind it, what it meant. And, through that experience of marketing something that I'm not a high consumer of, it taught me real professionalism,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you can learn a product, you can understand its cultural relevance, its positioning in the market.
100%.
You can authenticate the product. You can do all those things, but not be the primary consumer.
100.
So the learning curve working with OWN, we did some other cool projects as well. And got to meet celebrities and do all that sort of stuff. And that was cool. But really for me, it was kind of like that cultural relevance of being able to expose and participate in something that may not be for me, but I can still have respect and bring value to.
And you can understand it,
And
you
you can
know?
understand
The most importantly,
Yeah,
even
man.
if it's not your life or that's not your lifestyle, understanding your client, and
Of
understanding the core target market of your
Yeah.
client is important.
And they were like a highly funded startup.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the craziest. So it was just like the stuff we dealt with was wild, but it was a great learning curve.
Had to do what you had to do.
But it opened my eyes to storytelling, like activated storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
where you fuse creative with with business objectives.
Okay.
and cultural relevance.
You say you spent about 1.5 years there. So what was next?
Sure. So after that, I kind of reached a point where like, though I enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm constantly like, pushing, driving. So I met a mentor who was getting me into the speaker circuit.
Okay.
Like personal to professional development speaker circuit, and there was this big conference that she basically was like, just go to. You ain't got to pay for nothing. It was worth a couple thousand.
Yeah.
But it was like, I either go to that and leave my job
as a speaker, or
no,
as a just like partake,
but connect. Like because I was basically getting walked into all the rooms of those running it. So it's like either take this risk to advance my career or stay at my job. Because I couldn't do both. It was a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I wasn't getting 3 days off.
And a lot of people would have chosen the route of security. Exactly. So in this scenario, I'm assuming for you that you took a risk on yourself.
I took a massive risk.
Okay. But it's a risk on yourself.
On myself.
Yeah.
Yes. And that was it.
Yeah.
And it's like Sonia, who's the founder of ONA Creative, like we still, I texted at the top of the year, like we're still like, it's all love.
Yeah.
She understood.
And sometimes, even people that are owners of companies, they would know that something is better for the employee or for their future than what they're currently doing. That certain things are stepping stone, so that connectivity that you would have gotten at ONA would have just been a stepping stone for you to be able to take the next level.
Exactly.
And she would well understand that.
Of course. And she's a powerhouse. I mean, she's just like, you should interview her one day,
I'd love to.
I got to bring her to Bermuda.
So the thing is that you make the connection, and we'll make it happen.
And when we get to talk about the conference, I think that's somebody I would love to bring down to Bermuda to talk, because what she has pioneered in storytelling, but also for women in storytelling, especially women in sports storytelling, from a marketing angle.
What's her full name?
Her last name is, I don't want to mess it up.
So just do this. It will come up over here.
KL. Yeah. I'm going to just say Sonia. I'll tell you later. Sonia, I'm not going to mess up your name.
No, we won't do that.
But so from there, I got into the speaker circuit, right? Where I was, I got to speak at the California Women's Conference. I got to speak at this business conference in Mexico.
Okay.
And some other ones as well.
Now, speaker circuit, I think, again, I'm going to bring you back to kind of base level on a lot of things.
Right.
Only because
Understood.
For me, even what you're saying, some of these things are new.
Yes.
So a speaker circuit. Now, a speaker circuit meaning that you are going to an event and you are paid to speak, or you're just going there to talk.
So for me, initially, I'm not getting paid to speak, right?
Okay.
Because like I'm building, and for me, it's always about exploration first, right? You're trying to expose a new market or some new skill, right? Because you asked me like, what was the goal? Like, what were you going after?
That's the point of it, yeah.
Right?
What's the goal?
Frankly, when I was younger, I wanted to be a millionaire by 30.
Okay.
And famous by the time I graduate college.
Okay.
Right?
Did you achieve either? You're a millionaire.
No, so I wasn't a millionaire by 30.
Okay.
And fame is relative.
Completely relative.
Fame is relative. So I mean, I was known by my sector, right?
And that's famous enough.
Exactly.
I would consider that fame.
Of course, and I had enough clout in Bermuda to like do things.
Yeah.
That had I didn't have that clout, I wouldn't be able to do.
Okay.
Back at that age. So I achieved a lot, but then I realized those were like very finite goals, right? It was finite and there's no real arrival.
Yeah.
Right? So really the goal is creative freedom.
100%.
Right? That's like from a macro perspective.
And freedom in general, right? Because when you say you want $1 million, when you really break that down to its core, like what's $1 million worth if you have to spend out $1 million every year, right? So it's freedom of movement, freedom of travel, freedom of life and experience, So when someone says a millionaire, what they really mean is that they want some sort of freedom, the freedom to be able to make choices that are bound for themselves and not for the pursuit of money.
Many millionaires in LA who don't have freedom.
Yeah, 100%.
They don't have peace, right? So it's like I started realizing it's more about infinite goals, right? For me, I want the freedom to create, right? And I want to cultivate spaces for collaboration where stories can be told, when those stories can be made into systems, and those in systems can create impact.
Love
right?
it.
That's my goal in life.
What kind of impact are you talking about creating?
Sure. So my passion is in private sector.
Okay.
Right? So think of small to medium-sized enterprises and down. Impact is not just someone being able to eat. Impact is someone being able to turn an idea into a business and then sustain their livelihood off of that activity
Okay.
while producing positive outcomes for their local community, and if they choose to go global, for a global community.
Okay.
Right? There are so many tools in place. There are so many mechanisms in place that can liberate people to have the option to either choose to work for a company and make a living that way, or work for themselves while driving innovation and positive disruption in economies, because that's required. You know, and that model itself is what has allowed me to do what I do.
Okay.
You know, because literally from working on the speaking circuit, which is speaking, personal development, selling, that sort of stuff, I got another gig at that time, right? I was able to do marketing for an event startup, which was incredible. So we was doing music showcases across the U.S.
Wow.
Positioning record label representatives at each showcase. The winners of the showcases would get consultation with one of the record label reps, and we actually got a few artists signed off of our showcase.
Wow.
You know, one artist got a distribution deal with Empire, was his group.
Huge.
You know, huge. And I got to be a part of that, and that was in 2017. And at the end of that year, I closed an investment deal for my indie record label, so I could go full time doing music with my band.
Wow. What was the indie record label name?
Nouvoir.
Nouvoir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nouvoir. N-U-V-O-U-R.
Okay. So like new.
It was a made up word.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like new black.
Yeah.
You know?
So voir, like nouveau from French, and voir is like vision.
Okay.
Voir, sight.
Okay.
So Nouvoir was kind of like New Visions, right?
Okay.
So it was Nouvoir Incorporated, and my band was Heritage, and that investment took me from 2017 all the way to the end of 2019.
Okay.
Where I was able to do music full time. I was able to tour, cut records, put out music videos, you know.
Great.
Yeah.
In terms of, so for Nouveau and how you've transitioned to now you're hosting an event, right?
Sure.
An event or a speakers series and event, a number of different things combined. How do you go from being a musician, living in LA, to hosting now an event in Bermuda?
Sure. So, you know, my band, we you know, the tragic band split, right?
Yeah.
Happens in all great Hollywood stories.
All of them, yeah.
Right? So the band splits at the end of 2019.
Okay. Amicably or?
We'll call it that.
That was a no. I'm good with that.
No, I mean, it was as amicable as it could be, right?
Yes.
It's like a divorce.
100%.
Right? You know, you have a band that started in 2011 and it's 2019 and you're separating. Right? That's a lot.
Yeah, that's an investment in time together, for sure.
So I would say under the circumstances, it was amicable as it could be.
Okay.
It's all love, but it's kind of like when you leave a job.
Yeah.
You know, you leave a hole in that position, you know, until something fills it, you know? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously I used to work in HSBC.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I left on very good terms, you know, like it wasn't like a breakup,
okay.
You know, and even when I left the band, you know, it was in pursuit of love, you know, so
yeah,
it wasn't a bad breakup in that
when you
one
say
either.
In pursuit of love, what you mean?
Well, you know, I had to decide between traveling with the band, performing, and pursuing my love interest at the time, which would have been my girlfriend.
Right.
And trying to make something stronger with her.
Yeah.
You know, so we were over in British Columbia at the time. And she was living in Japan doing teaching English as a second language. And, you know, I was really soul searching and trying to figure out, okay, how do I make this work?
Yeah.
Right? And in order to make it work, we had to be together.
Sure.
And so she came back. We lived in Halifax together. So when I left the gang, they were over in British Columbia, and I went to go be with my girlfriend at the time, who is still my wife.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It
Wife
worked
of
out.
17 years, you know? So, yeah. So in that vein, the breakup, I've seen it on TV. I understand it as a dynamic, but for me, it didn't occur in the exact same way.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's funny because it there was a huge blessing in it. in the sense that happened towards the end of 2019, and it forced me to start pivoting, right? And even for my my main investor, he was a hotelier.
Okay.
And he got hit with some crazy litigation. So he didn't the investment wasn't flowing freely as it was before.
Understood. Yeah.
And we were just about to pass that threshold where we would release the album and start monetizing. And it happened right before that threshold. But then 4 months later, COVID hit. So either way, we was looking at a wall.
Yeah, 100%.
You get what I'm trying to say? So that pivot got me started early. So by the time COVID hit, I did a full 360. Well, it would be 180. A full 180, into wealth management.
Okay, and wealth management from which part of wealth management?
Sure. So I started with insurance.
Okay.
And then from insurance, I got my securities licenses and started doing.
Who is this guy?
Look,
Who is this guy?
Trust me, man. And was a blessing. In 2019, I got my green card, which means I could do anything now.
Okay.
Right? Before, all the jobs I did were, by definition, paid internships in attachment to my degree.
Got you.
So I could only do marketing jobs. Literally.
Because that's what you were studying.
I did an MBA and then my minor was in marketing.
Okay.
So it's like, I could only do that.
Yeah.
But now that I have my green card, hey, I could do anything.
So I'm going to tell you something else. So I did my MBA with a minor in marketing.
Hey, come on now, see?
Where is this at? This is crazy. Like, who are you?
It's like the Spider-Man meme.
It's like, are you sure? That's
Am I you or you me?
Yeah, I'm listening to you, boy. I'm like, let me go check my bank account. I feel like your boy might be pulling a little. Like, you did what? And you've been married for 17 years too, huh?
Wow, crazy.
That's hilarious.
Do you know my wife?
Yeah. It's like, wait a minute here.
I'm not married.
Deep fake. Yeah. No, but deep real. This is awesome.
Yeah, man.
So, okay. So now you got your securities license, you got your green card, and you're managing people's money, or you're managing money for a mutual fund, hedge fund. What are you doing there?
I'm in the retail side, right?
Okay.
So I'm working directly with individuals, learning their financial plan. What's their risk tolerance? What's their debt environment? What's their discretionary income? What are their short, medium, long-term goals? Creating like a financial plan or understanding, and then placing them with products.
Okay.
Now, I didn't do individual stock trading. That wasn't my focus. So I'm doing more
front-end sales side. Yeah.
Set funds, so mutual funds or bond funds or cash value life insurance or straight up insurance or retirement planning.
Okay.
Right? I even did some long-term care stuff, and long-term care is basically like, you're not sick, you're just old and can't get around and you need additional help.
Yeah.
If you have an older person in your family, that could run you easily $4,000 to $5,000 a month.
100%.
So long-term care helps to supplement that cost to reduce the burden on the family or that individual's retirement.
Right. Okay.
Right. So that sort of stuff. So, I mean, I was in that for 4.5 years.
Wow.
And that was a reset for me. So you asked me, like, how do you go to the conference? Well, I got exposed to so many industries. And because I'm in LA, your exposure is at a very high level. So I'm not doing, and then if you're in a startup or small to medium-sized enterprise, I'm not doing like front desk work.
Right.
I'm working alongside executives and like department managers, the equivalent.
Okay.
So I'm getting exposed to like straight up business optics. You understand what your role has to do with outcome. I'm not just fulfilling tasks. If we don't hit outcomes, I'm a part of the problem.
100%.
I'm in those. So it taught me high level business in multiple different industries. I had to do well because like you're not, you're in that a very competitive environment.
It's extremely competitive, and there's always somebody that's willing to take your place because it's a come up game, right?
Exactly. And then keep in mind, so when I was in wealth management, that was straight commission. I had no salary,
no base salary.
So for those 4.5 years, I'm a hunter. If I don't bring home meat,
that's it.
We're starving.
Yeah, vegetarian.
So but during that time, because it was full commission, I had a lot of freedom.
Okay.
So I could stack my meat, and so at that time I got signed by a talent agent. So I was doing commercial modeling.
Okay. Now I've seen a couple of these. And I feel like that's how I found you.
Because I didn't promote the wealth management was how I maintained my cost of living in LA.
Right.
But if you went on my social media, you would have no idea that's what I was doing for 4.5 years. Why?
Modeling and what it looked like acting a little bit.
I was doing commercial acting. I was doing modeling. I had a jazz residency for like 8 months at a top club in LA on Sunset, right there in West Hollywood. I was producing parties on the weekend at Poppy, which is a big nightclub in LA. Like, so I was doing all this cool stuff because I had time flexibility, but I was really making rent and paying my condo and stuff like that.
Wealth management.
Off of wealth management, because that was all interpersonal. Yeah. That wasn't something to like, and with the way licenses and compliance works, you can't even really be online. Yeah, promoting that anyway. So 100%. So I had like this dual lifestyle. So I learned multiple kinds at the same time. But think of it, I was able to manage accounts, do people's money while being on like nationally and internationally distributed commercials.
That's the dream now.
Yeah, while like booking like celebrity acts at like, a jazz club. Yeah. All at the same time.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
so I mean, from the outside looking in, I only got that one side.
Sure.
I would have, if somebody would have said, "Hey, have you met Gianluca, the wealth manager?" It's like, it doesn't ring a bell,
like, different guy.
Yeah. A couple, 2 Gianlucas maybe.
Different guy, like
Yeah. Okay.
But all the while, so keep in mind, I had that business development, that marketing, that storytelling acumen, right? So in about 4 years ago, I started Sydney Palmer part-time.
Okay.
And that was my consulting. I did business development, storytelling strategy, partnership strategy.
Okay.
Right? So I had like part-time clients.
And this is your own company?
This is my own company.
Okay, got it.
Right? And there are things I'm
because you slide into things as though it's nothing. But that's huge. So you started a company that took on those kinds of responsibilities.
That took on those responsibilities, and it was a wild ride, man. Like, there was at one point I was a co-founder, like in a tech company, right? And that lasted a year and some change. I decided.
What was the tech?
So they did business intelligence, performance technology.
Okay.
Right. So it's essentially operationalizing data.
Okay.
For outcomes. Right. And so just like special ops, marketing.
Yeah,
that's what I call it, because it's not just it's not a high creative focus. It's very transactional. What is the data saying?
What should you do with it?
Who needs to be converted? What's your rate of conversion? What's your front touch points? How is that performing? What's Google?
What industry was it specifically focused towards, or was it just data analytics for any?
It was industry agnostic.
Okay.
Right? Because every industry has a specific goal that's led to some level of conversion.
Okay.
Right? Whether it's digital ads, whether it's organic, but it's how do you control your front end interaction to get the back end outcomes you want, and how is data informing that decision making process?
Right. So it's how data connects into the funnel management, right? So how you're going from the front end to your sales.
Exactly.
Yeah, but using data to guide it.
Exactly. So they had that, and then internally they were developing proprietary technology for task management.
Okay.
Can't get into too much NDAs and stuff, so I'm not getting into too much detail
That's
there. But like I took an early exit because after a while, it wasn't for me.
Okay.
Right, but I learned a lot.
Okay.
That was actually very amicable as far as we parted, but I took an early exit because I was like, you know what? I just need to focus on what I already started, my own business.
Right.
And so.
And did you? I mean, I guess the NDA part might preclude you from saying it, but the use of data and analytics in business intelligence, let's call it that, right? So making your decisions on how to close that gap from your front end down to your sales. Did you incorporate any of the concepts of that into your newly formed business?
I'll say this: to survive in this market, every company must do that.
Yeah, it's important, right?
You must do it. If you don't have a stronghold on your data, right, it's going to be difficult to duplicate any scaling mechanisms, right? And that's why with Sydney Palmer, it's important because there has to be a blend between storytelling, but also outcome.
100%.
A lot of agencies some agencies just want to focus
too heavy on storytelling, yeah,
and creative, and other ones are so transactional. it's hard to activate community around them, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, how do you find a blend between the two?
Yeah.
And that's where Sydney Palmer sits.
Okay.
Right? First, it's a heavy understanding of story. What is a story? What is a because from your user journey, so user experience journey, right?
Yeah.
That's
I understand it completely.
you understand it, right?
Very
But
well,
for those who
yes.
think this is jargon, it's basically your customer experience from their first activity with your company all the way to becoming a customer
Yeah.
and then becoming a repeat customer. There's a user journey.
100% with and it's every business, no matter if you, and specifically for, broader conversation when you get into art and all those other things, people don't really know that there is a user journey that's associated with how people first see you or interact with you. If that interaction is digital, whether that be on social media or on a website or through PR or whatnot. And then 2, they reach out to you, right? And what mechanism is taking that person from their first interaction with you, which is digital, to now they're reaching out to you. And what's that communication? Is there a gap between them reaching out to you and you getting back to them? And is that experience a good experience? And then you talk about someone that's actually going to purchase and become like a patron of your work.
Yeah.
How does that experience work? And I don't think that in art or in the artist realm outside of that blue chip realm, which is kind of the enigma for many artists, outside of that realm, I don't think that many people understand that there are data points along that whole customer journey.
Exactly.
And how you're capturing that.
Yes.
But yes, I digress.
No, but
there's the connection that needs to be made in business overall and all facets of business, not just
exactly. Now,
small business.
My primary focus is not business intelligence.
Okay.
Right? Though it's highly considered. That's not my primary focus.
Right.
My primary focus is true storytelling strategy. Because if you don't understand your story,
okay,
and you don't understand what you want as an outcome, right, then you won't be informed in the best place to put your data points. So your data is also telling you a story, right?
But do you start with data and analytics first, or do you start with story first?
It depends on the company's desired outcome.
Okay.
And how they're framed.
Okay.
More than often, we start story first.
Okay.
Because, only because that's what informs the data, right? Because if I understand your story and the reasoning and the why behind the product, then I'm going to understand. So I learned this in wealth management.
Okay.
As technical as finance is, at the retail level, it's an emotional decision.
Always.
You get what I'm trying to say? So if I don't understand the client's story, or if I'm fundraising, if I don't understand the investor's story,
100%,
right, then I can give all the data points I want. It's not moving.
Doesn't make a difference. Operations could never sell anything, right? It's marketing.
That's it.
At the end of the day, it's your story, right? That sells.
And
things.
it's ancient power. Story has ancient power.
Yeah. So, okay, just because I really enjoy this, right? This line of conversation. So, there's one journey for a startup.
Sure.
Right? Where, they're building their story and they're about to launch or they're getting their founder information and they're about to launch that story. But for established businesses that have a mismatch between their story and the data, how do you approach that?
Right. I mean, the first thing is, who are you telling the story to? Right? And what's their story? Why do they care about you?
Okay.
If there's a mismatch, you've probably lost 2 things, a sense of care and a sense of humanity.
Okay.
And that's what happens. Your data and your KPIs, your key performance indicators, right? That doesn't include care and humanity. And if you get so big that you lose your touch on care and humanity, then you've lost authentication in your target market.
Right.
There's going to be a more grassroots company that's going to come in and they're going to fill that gap.
Completely.
And they may not be as good as you are, but if they gather enough momentum, they'll gain the revenue and capital to get the investment to beat you at your own game.
Because they understand the customer.
Because you've lost touch. Even with some startups you worked with, my primary job, even when I was working with ONA, was to find authentic rogue artists that could activate the brand in the community. Even if the founders were naturally disconnected with that audience, as a creative agency, our job was to put a drape of authenticity over their product.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it was authentic or not authentic, it would feel and be digested that way.
But it connected with the audience.
But it connected with, and it was authentic because we did it.
Yeah. And sometimes when it comes to, and I'll take it to art also, the customer's experience versus the artist's experience.
Sure.
Or, you know, you could put your all into a piece. Right? I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. It's like, but people don't understand it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, but they love it though.
Yeah.
Right? So even though they may not understand it from your perspective,
Yes.
once you've given it to the world, now it's theirs.
Exactly.
Right? It's theirs for them to experience it in their own way. So when you have a brand, say you're using this rogue artist, call them that.
Yeah.
Rogue artist, the audience is connecting with that brand in an authentic way. It may not be the way that the owners that the owners anticipated,
Right.
but they're interacting with it in an authentic way.
And also, this is the other thing. The reason why I start with story, it can become a headache if you're trying to authenticate something that a founder is pioneering, but not authentically connected to from a story's perspective. So if I don't understand that founder's perspective, it becomes a challenge to pitch him my perspectives on the story because I'm met with friction.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes you have founders that win at something that they're not cool at. And they desperately want their ideas to work, but like it's a mismatch.
100%.
But if I understand their story, I know how to frame strategy so they feel included.
You're selling to both sides. You're selling to the founder and you're also selling to the client.
Especially if they're like a face forward sort of founder, which most founders want to be in this day and age. Like
by nature, yeah.
Founders are the new rock stars in that sense, right?
Yeah, facts.
So they're the new artists, right? Because they actually hold equity over their creative, right?
Yeah. The founder's story now is probably more important than some of the artwork and some of the stuff that they put out, right? You know, as people want to know who they're investing in nowadays.
For example, the thing that went viral with the McDonald's CEO taking a nibble of the bun, right? Poor storytelling. Like the team lost. Like, does he actually like the? You have to know this stuff. What's his part? And if he doesn't, film the VP of marketing, not the
Somebody
CEO.
else. Yeah. Don't put the guy in there that don't
Nobody
like it.
demanded that. Nobody demanded that.
Yeah.
We didn't, as an audience. Now, I don't eat McDonald's,
Yeah.
but there was no like viral like.
We want to see him do this.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there was no poll asking for that.
Yeah, it was pointless.
Bad
It's like you
storytelling.
just threw him under the bus.
It's inauthentic. Yeah, good. Like you know, it's simple stuff like that. But that cost McDonald's millions.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it's.
Who else was it? Was it Tommy Hilfiger that had come out and was like, I never really intended for black people to wear my clothes. Like, who asked you?
But you
What were you?
That was never true.
What were you doing?
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, but that was never true. Black people just ran with that. He never said that.
You never said it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Same thing with Timberlands.
okay.
Everybody says he said it on Oprah, but nobody could find a clip of him saying it on Oprah. So I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, but
Yeah,
like,
no, fair enough.
but see that storytelling's important. Why?
Yeah.
Because
'Cause it's
Tommy
going viral.
Hilfiger hasn't done enough of a counter story campaign
To be able to
debunk that.
counteract. Yeah, counteract.
I'm sure he didn't step out and be like, oh, I love black people wearing my stuff. I'm sure that never happened, but.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I would have to go and look and verify, but I know that being a huge story maybe like 7-8 years ago, you know?
But that's a factor a lot of people's decisions.
Yeah.
I was wearing Tommy Hilfigers about 3 years ago, and someone's like, "You're still wearing that?"
Yeah, like what are you doing? What's going on?
Story.
Yeah.
Like story is so important, and it's not creative. It's the literal fibers. It's the nucleus of any sort of brand or business strategy, right? And that's the perspective. I was like, "Oh, you do stories, so social media." I'm like, that's like saying, you know, you're a surgeon, and someone says, "Oh, you paint fingernails." Like that's the equivalent. Social media is like fingernails to a surgeon.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
It's what you see outside, right? But you're working on like the internal organs that allow the hands to move for the fingernails to matter in the first place.
Facts.
You know? So all of that to say, with all this experience, that's what really led me to co-found 2 Weeks of Magic. The
I
conference
love the
in
name.
Bermuda. Thank
2
you.
weeks of magic.
2
Like,
weeks
who
of
wouldn't
magic.
want to be involved in that?
You get them.
Like, who
It's
like,
2 weeks of magic.
yeah, I mean, 2 weeks of awesomeness. It's like, no, I'm not going. Like, are
Yeah.
you serious? Why wouldn't you want to be involved in 2 weeks of magicness?
And the perfect thing is magic is
magic.
you and I sitting here and being like, oh, your name means light, so does mine.
Yeah.
Oh, you in a band, so are I. Oh, you was because when you collaborate in community, it becomes magical.
Yeah. And you
you-
find there's connections and there's sparks, right?
You feel what I'm trying to say? So we start recognizing these things. So at its core, right? At its core, 2 weeks of magic is it's a weekend conference experience that has two signature events.
Okay.
Right? There's a summit and then there's a award brunch. But sprinkled around it is 2 weeks of community activations
Love it.
that involve learning, immersive tourism, youth empowerment, cultural experience and interchange, and some workshops and education experiences.
So could you give me practically what someone could experience during this 2-week period?
Sure. So the first thing, it's a celebration of culture through collaboration, right? Our primary model is to pair local professionals with international professionals in their same verticals,
Okay.
right? It's not Bermudians open for an international or an international open for Bermudian. It's side by side
Working together.
cohabitation in a specific vertical.
And now are they working towards a specific end or is it more networking?
So it's a mixture, right? So
Okay.
there are, let's say I'll just say it this way. I'll give you an example. Our primary collaborative activation last year was with a celebrity chef based out of Atlanta.
Okay.
He cooked for like Tyler Perry, Kanye, Kim, all these people, right? And then a Bermuda master chef,
Okay.
right? Who works at Princess.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
So they came together, right? And then we collaborated with the Bermuda Diabetes Association.
Wow.
And the two chefs sat down and reinvented recipes for traditional Bermuda cuisine. So it's tasty, it's still crunchy, right? It has all the things you love, but it's healthier for
Yeah.
diabetics. But not for diabetics, for anyone.
Yeah.
So we came
That's
up with the
healthy in
menu.
general. Yeah.
They cleared the menu with the dietitians at the Bermuda Diabetes Association. And then we did 2 cooking activations that were live streamed on their Facebook,
Cool.
where Bermudians were able to come and hands-on experience. We cooked fish sandwiches, macaroni and cheese, and potato salad, and different like traditional Bermudian things. And they got to experience that.
Okay.
And then everyone got to go home with that recipe of the food that they tried out.
Right.
And then we had a summit discussion where we paired the celebrity chef, and he was on stage with Talani Beaufort.
Yeah, I know
Who's
Talani
a
well.
tech entrepreneur as well as
Yeah,
hospitality.
Talani's my
entrepreneur.
guy.
Yeah, and they spoke about global collaboration in businesses and how the culinary arts, restaurants, hospitality, and tech converge, right? And the opportunities for that to even converge between Bermuda and North America.
Cool.
Right? So you have 2 experiences right off bat where one is fully immersive just on the food, 2 is thought leadership and ideation to inspire the audience and open them up to opportunities for collaboration. The gentlemen on stage were able to connect and forge cross-cultural, cross-border collaboration. And then the celebrity chef and I went to East End Primary School and did a presentation for the students.
Nice,
And
man.
he's an professional basketball player. He's like 6'5", 6'6".
Okay.
So these kids think he's a giant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
He's out there
yeah.
playing
They
cricket
must have
with
loved
them.
that.
We give a story.
Nah,
So
the American play cricket?
it was hilarious. and then he was holding it like a
I was
baseball
about to say, I
bat.
believed everything up until this
No,
point.
I got video footage to prove it. And then the kid's like, "That's not how you hold it. This ain't baseball."
I was like, everything sounds good. Wait.
No, real talk. He went
Okay.
out and played cricket with them after
Nice,
the talk.
nice. Well, they taught him how to play cricket,
Yeah,
obviously.
well,
yeah.
it was he attempted to play his best,
Yeah.
cricket. But it was true cultural engagement.
Okay.
There was thought leadership, there was hands-on collaboration, and then there was youth empowerment. And that's the whole concept about 2 weeks of magic. It's allowing local to shine on the global stage throughout collaboration, but not just be this unilateral experience where me, international, talk
Yeah.
to you from the stage.
Like you're talking down, yeah.
Be inspired. I'm out of here on the first flight tonight, right? And that works sometimes.
I would say that it works sometimes for sure, but the approach, and this is why I've been asking you to kind of slow down on your trajectory in your career,
Yeah.
because him connecting with the kids and working along with the kids side by side, and him working with a local chef, and then also him connecting with Talani, or not him, but the whole experience.
Sure.
It's like synapses in your brain, right?
Yes.
You make all of these connections that now create a new way of thinking, or a new form that you can use to be able to think in a different way. So yes, you can talk from here, but the connection and the multiple connections on multiple facets is what allows for it to reverberate through the community.
It's impact.
100%.
It's true grounded impact.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 weeks of magic, that's the focus. It's impact through cultural and business innovation collaboration.
Okay.
Right?
So now that makes perfect sense.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Perfect sense.
So and we're bringing it back in December.
Love
So
it.
if you go to 2weeksofmagic.com, 2weeksofmagic.com, there's a
2
wait
weeks
list.
of magic.com, 2weeksofmagic.com, 2weeksofmagic.com.
There you go, and you can join the wait list. More information coming out soon. We
Okay.
have some great local sponsors that came together. You know, we are co-founded with Glenn Blakeney.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, so we got great radio coverage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, BBC covered 2 of our items. We're very grateful for that. You know, we work with Cocoa Reef as a venue, Bruce Eaton James as a venue. Lindo's came on as like our lead sponsor.
Yeah. Love
for last
Linda's.
year, and many other partners that came in.
Great.
That was it was really a beautiful exchange,
Mm-hmm.
and it was still very Bermuda.
I love it.
And
I love it.
the people that came, they were just like, Bermuda is magic, like the magic of Bermuda. This is.
I say it all the time. Bermuda. I mean, I don't say Bermuda is magic all the time, and the old trope, Bermuda is another world. You know, but we have something very special here, and sometimes all it takes is that connection.
That's it.
Right?
Man.
We have what I would consider to be some of the most talented people in the world.
Yes.
Access and seeing people like yourself
Sure.
that, one, have done things,
Yeah.
and are doing things,
Yeah.
but 2, have a community mind in that
Mm-hmm.
you're going to take your broader extended network and now connect that in
Yeah.
to the local network to be
Yes.
able to allow for more people to be able to grow.
Of course. And you know what's beautiful, right? Working with Glenn, right?
Mhm.
Glenn's a senior,
Yeah?
you know, and to be able to work with somebody in that level of seniority
Mhm.
has been a very different experience for me, because most of my co-founders and partners in business, they're my age,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But Glenn's like my dad's age,
Mhm.
and we're effectively business partners,
Mhm.
right? And it's been such a wealth exchange for me,
Mhm.
because there are things that I just don't know, I'm not exposed to, or even like stories about his heyday in that sense, right?
Mhm.
That have really helped create something that's truly authentic,
Mhm.
right? It has a level of consideration that it may not have had if it was just me doing it.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's also a big level of collaboration that I'm an advocate for, is younger people working with more senior individuals.
Yeah, it's a transfer of knowledge, right? You know, like you think of in Africa, you have the banyan tree. Yeah, I heard the one camera went off.
Yeah.
But you have like a transfer of knowledge, and I think it's important for the ages, to be able to have that close.
Yeah.
Again, I'll come back to the same synapses, right? It's when you can rub together,
Yeah.
then that is that transfer of energy and transfer of information to be able to make it a better overall story.
That's
No.
it. Because collaboration is not about my people, your people. There's collaboration is a melting pot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have people from LA, Atlanta,
It's charter.
New York.
Yeah.
There's one lady, she's Persian, right? Like, just all come together in Bermuda.
Yeah.
Like, we had a biotech CEO,
Mm-hmm.
a doctor and licensed therapist, a CPA, a global foundation, like all came down, a foundation in Sierra Leone, a venture firm in LA, Beverly Hills, all come to Bermuda and just vibe out on collaboration and opportunity, and they can't wait to come back in December.
But that's what you want, right? You want people that are going to be advocates for the country regardless, right? Yeah. I love that.
You get me? So
I get it completely. I get it. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you explained it out, because a lot of times you do get, or at least me, you hear about things and there's a lot of jargon associated with it.
Yeah.
So you talked about brands connecting with their audience. So, even for an event series or a speaker series, you still need to connect with the people that will potentially be the ones that will come to it, right?
Of course.
And I like that you explained it in such a way that I want to be there,
Yeah,
I definitely want to come.
Yeah, I would love to have you be a part of it, because
Not even a question.
you know what I'm saying? Like, the work that you're doing is true high-level storytelling.
Yeah,
Right?
that's the aim.
That's what you're doing. And you're transforming businesses. You're giving them opportunities that they would not have access to if you weren't able to capture and distribute their story in the way you're able to do it with Burnt House
100%.
Productions, and you're shaping culture.
Trying to, and
Actively, yeah.
And also, I think that one of the cool things that you talked about is building community, right?
Yeah.
So shaping culture, definitely, but shaping culture through building community.
Yes.
It's not look at me, look at me, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
It's how can we,
Exactly.
as opposed to, just trying to be the star boy,
Yeah, man.
so to speak.
Sure.
And so I love to hear what you're doing. I think it's great.
Thank you.
I love
man.
it. I love it. I love it. So we have the website. How else can people connect with you? And what else should they connect with you on? Is it just the 2 weeks of magic?
So, yeah.
Or what else?
2 weeks of magic and my company, Sydney Palmer, right?
Okay.
So it's Sydney, which is my dad's name,
Mhm.
and Palmer, which is my grandfather's name.
Wow.
Right? It's my middle name, sydneypalmer.co.co. Connect with me there, or business@sydneypalmer.co. And if you have a company, you want to do storytelling strategy, you're looking for partnership activations, you want to learn a little bit more about business intelligence, why isn't your story converting?
Yeah.
How can you measure and optimize that? Like, the sky's the limit,
And that's it. And there's professionals. I mean, you are a professional that can help bridge that gap.
Yes, and the thing is, it's not just my company. I work with a cohort of, I would say, special ops solutions in the digital conversion space.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just about what I can do. Right.
It's a collective.
I've built a collaborative economy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company out of Venice that does not immersive, that does augmented reality.
I was about to say that.
So
there's AR, there's AR and VR. So the augmented reality would be when you like the goggles that you have and you can see the world and overlay your reality on the existing world.
Yes.
Yeah,
So whether
so-
it's goggles, it could be your phone, like
Mhm.
Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Pokemon Go is augmented reality,
Yeah.
right? And it's
But it's overlaying on existing reality.
right, which is more effective.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
realize VR didn't hit off as they thought it was going to be.
I think Meta just gave up on their whole VR project.
Yeah, because why? Like, why are we trying to escape reality, right?
Yeah. But some people love that, right?
But-
But it's niche.
People love that, but there's high risk in it, right? It's a high level. It's technology disassociation if you look at it that way, right? Because if I start loving that world more than this one, why am I gonna come back? And you see like Black Mirror episodes and that sort of stuff, right? And that's a real thing.
100%.
People use drugs to disassociate,
Yeah.
right? People use gaming to disassociate. They use sports to disassociate. You're telling me I could put on goggles and literally
Completely
completely dissociate?
Yeah. And then when you start to add a price tag to it, I think it becomes a little bit dicey also,
Of
right? Where
course,
people are
people's-
now living in there and blowing cash on avatars and clothes and all that kind of stuff.
I went to LA Tech Week last year, right? This one lady was making like 30 to 40 racks a month selling clothes virtually. I think in one of those games, like
Yeah.
Fortnite or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's different strokes for different folks for sure.
I don't knock her
And
hustle.
it's not my stroke, yeah.
I don't knock, but augmented reality. So I published a book last year,
Okay.
right? Self-published through my company, Sydney Palmer, storytelling. It got #1 bestseller on Amazon, which was a great accomplishment as a first-time author. Shout out
Like
to God.
it's slipping. Okay.
No, but I bring this up because the book is called How to Hijack Reality.
See, and you did a TED talk on that also.
And I did a TED talk on the book.
Wow.
You know, and
I have to watch the full TED Talk. You sent it to me like 20 minutes before this.
yeah.
You came.
So the full talk isn't. I sent you the article that went out,
Okay.
but the full. Actually, I have a book for you.
Okay. I'll take it.
I brought you a book. Me give it to you now.
I would love it. Yeah, go
Yeah,
for it.
yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go
And
get it.
then
Yeah, man, I love this. I like how you just slip in like goat mode stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I have a bestseller book.
Yeah, you know
Yeah, I
so.
started my own company.
Very casual about it.
Yeah, very casual.
you know, but the reason why I bring it out is because there's like a synergy between the concept of augmented reality and hijacking reality. Because what augmented reality is, you project technology onto perceived reality to augment your experience of it.
Yeah,
It's a new layer of activation
yeah,
that is embodied by technology. It's made physical. It's made interactive.
yeah,
And a part of hijacking reality is not about living or daydreaming,
yeah,
right? It's knowing what you want, allowing your imagination to be your first attachment to a concept of reality, and then finding ways to project your accepted reality from imagination onto what I call perceived reality, until you slowly start bending perceived reality in your favor.
into real reality.
But that's the question. What is real reality?
Okay.
Is real reality
We're going that deep.
common perception, or is real reality what your imagination takes hold of and feels as real?
So, no, I think that this would be a long conversation.
It would. No,
Just because.
I'll just throw some science into it.
Okay.
Quick. There's a part of your brain called the default mode network.
Yeah.
The default mode network is activated when you close your eyes and reflect on past memories. Funny enough, that's the same brain region that's activated when you imagine future outcomes,
Okay.
which means your brain isn't differentiating from the reality of relived past memories and the experience of projected future outcomes,
Okay.
which means it's processed as reality. So now I ask you, what's more real? Thinking about a bad memory or imagining a preferred future? It's using the same part of your brain.
Yes. It's definitely the same part of the brain. But I wonder, though, to what extent the now is actual reality. You know what I mean? So you have the projection of reality, which is the past and the future, but we live in a lived reality in the current. You know what I mean? So you're projecting into the future what you would like to come to you in the future. Your
Right.
brain may not recognize it as separate things,
Sure.
but there is an actual reality that you're bringing to yourself in the form of like a law of attraction or whatnot.
Of course, yeah.
You know?
So it manifests into that actual reality, but same sort of thing. You have a healthy body, but you have 6 months of stress because you think you might lose your business, but you haven't lost your business.
Yeah.
That stress manifests into physical
Today.
sickness.
Yes.
Today.
Now.
But you
Correct.
still have your business.
Yes.
6 months later, it didn't go bad. You still have your business, but the imagination of a lost business gave you physical sickness into your body that was stress induced.
100%.
So what's real? Your business failing or the stress in your body?
Well, I would say 100% that the stress in your body is real. The perceived business failing, that was a real perception,
Right.
right? And so that real perception had real ramifications
Right.
on you. Whether or not that real was actualized,
Right.
you know, in terms of physical form, that would be, you know, no, it didn't, you know?
So then, do you measure reality based on perception or outcome?
Well, in that scenario, it would be perception.
Right, but it manifested an outcome.
100%.
So it was real both times.
100%.
You know, and that's now. I'm not saying I have all the answers.
Yeah.
But the point of the book, How to Hijack Reality,
I love philosophy.
you know, is to do that. Is
Yeah.
to pick holes in people's perception of reality.
Yeah.
To show them they have the opportunity to consider something else. That's it.
And shape future perception
And shape.
so
yes.
that, you know, so that your future reality, or at least for your current reality, you can shape a perceived better future, right?
Exactly.
Which allows for you to, in the now, live better.
Exactly.
Is that, yeah?
Of
Does that
course.
summarize that?
Yeah, and the book it's not really a self-help book. It's not like a
But hopefully it does help.
no.
though, in some way, shape, or
When I
form.
say self-help, it's not like here are the 5 steps of hijacking reality. You too. It's not that, right?
Yeah.
Because that would be arrogant of me.
Yeah.
Our approach to hijacking reality is a very personal walk. It's like your walk with spirituality or Christ if you're Christian, right? It is a personal walk. You can attend the framework of a religious environment, but your spiritual experience is personal to you.
100%. It's you taking those steps.
That's hijacking reality. So I can present a framework, an overall thought, and I can also pose disruptive questions that cause you to question what you've been taught to perceive as real. And if you can question it enough, you can change it.
Love it. Have you ever read the Tao Te Ching?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So that's it's, well, Tao being Chinese philosophy, and it's all about contradictions, right? So we live in a world of contradictions.
Sure.
And everything, so simple contradiction would be you fall asleep, not when you're trying to fall asleep, but when you stop trying to fall asleep. Right. It's when you stop trying that you actually fall asleep. So we live in a world where the thing that you're trying to do brings about the opposite result of what you're aiming to do, you know, and that contradiction is something that we live with. I think that understanding that we live in a world of contradictions and that sometimes the things that you are thinking and that you're putting forward are bringing about the current state of positive or negative.
Right.
You know, those contradictions are a facet of our lives.
And what's incredible is that internal contradiction is then manifested in community and collaboration. Because by default, the more people you collaborate with, the more contradictions you have to face. And those contradictions cause innovation.
And growth.
Right? And that's why, so I brought up the book because the modeling behind 2 Weeks of Magic is also rooted in the philosophy of hijacking reality by creating intentional positive contradictions while creating a room of mixed medium from industry to desire and creative perspective. We are then able to shape a new reality that builds community and creates more equity for local innovators and creatives at a global scale, right? So that's...
I love it.
It all makes sense at the end. It's just the journey's very abstract, you know?
Yeah, but you're manifesting it, right?
And that's it.
Yeah, I like it.
You know?
I like it a lot. Wow, this was a very, very insightful conversation.
Yeah,
Hopefully we
man.
got it all recorded.
Hey,
you know?
you know?
I love it, man.
Boom.
So, I don't usually do endings or whatnot, but definitely check this out.
Boom, yeah, hijackreality.com. Right
Yeah,
there.
that's awesome.
But
and thanks for coming through, man.
of course, man. Thank
The
you for
light.
having me, bro.
I love the light.
Hey, two lights, isn't it?
That's it.
2 lights
The light
make
is
3
shining.
lights.
Yeah.
3 lights make 1, no?
There you
There
go.
you go. Yo,
Trying to keep it
little
up.
Bermuda Triangle right here. You feel me?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what we do.
I love it. All right, my boy.
Cool.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
Yes, this is awesome. What time is it right now? I'm gonna go kite flying with my daughter.
1:17.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. I got a kite flying with my daughter at 2:00, so can't miss that.
Can't miss that.
And you had a hard stop at 1:15.
Yeah, I just got
Okay, yeah.